Imagine a warrior, seconds away from the moment that defines him. In the ring, under the blazing lights, his entire life has condensed into a single breath. Years of discipline, sweat, sacrifice, all converging into one fragile, luminous instant of clarity. This is not a fight. This is the culmination of identity. And then, a single punch lands. Not devastating. Not dramatic. Just precise enough to interrupt the fragile constellation in his mind. His world collapses in silence. It's absurdly small, almost anticlimactic. But this tiny fracture is a perfect metaphor for a modern crisis we rarely acknowledge. Strength can disappear in an instant when it was never truly grounded. And every one of us has felt a version of this collapse. It's the quiet moment when the persona we've built, the productive self, the confident self, the unshakable self, slips out of our grasp. You hit a breaking point you never saw coming. You wake up tired in a way sleep can't fix. You move through routines that no longer feel like yours. And you realize you haven't been living with strength. You've been performing it. This is the world Kai lived in before everything fell apart. A man sculpted by discipline, but hollowed by expectation. A fighter by profession, but not by spirit. A man whose armor was so polished that he forgot it was also a prison. This is the story of how he broke, and how breaking became the only doorway through which he could finally rebuild. But to understand his fall, you must first see the height from which he fell. Before collapse, Kai lived in a perpetual state of tension, a warrior wired to battle an enemy that didn't exist. His mind was an arena with no audience, no referee, no end. One part of him replayed old victories, trying to hold on to the feeling of being someone. Another part replayed anxieties. What if I lose? What if I slow down? What if I'm replaced? His mornings began with a ritual of expectation, not intention. He woke at 4 a.m. because champions did. He trained until his hands trembled because discipline required it. He pushed through exhaustion because rest felt like weakness dressed in comfort. He lived inside a borrowed definition of strength. Every punch he threw, every mile he ran, was less an act of passion and more an act of fear. Fear that if he stopped moving, the truth would catch up. The truth that underneath the titles and victories, he didn't know who he was without a fight. Men today know this feeling intimately. Not the punches, but the pressure. The constant, choking weight of needing to be productive, resilient, successful, stoic, fine, all the time. For everyone, this is the modern paradox. We call it strength, but it's actually fear wearing armor. Kai wasn't running toward greatness. He was running away from inadequacy. And the punch that knocked him out, it didn't break him. It revealed he was already cracked. After the loss, Kai went numb. Not the cinematic kind of numb where you scream into a mirror. A quieter kind. The kind that seeps into your bones. His apartment felt like an empty museum of a person he used to be. Gloves on the floor like relics. Trophies catching dust. A mirror that reflected a man who no longer had a story to tell. Men don't talk about this form of collapse. Because it doesn't look dramatic. It looks like stillness. Like sitting on the edge of your bed for 20 minutes without realizing. Like avoiding messages because answering would require explaining a feeling you don't understand. Like moving through the world with a silent question you're afraid to say out loud. Who am I if I'm not strong? Kai tried to train again. But the punches had no meaning. The gym felt foreign. Every routine felt like he was impersonating himself. He wasn't afraid of losing. He was afraid of being seen without his armor. This is the unspoken truth about burnout, depression, collapse. You don't break when you're weak. You break when you've forced yourself to be strong for too long. Kai's fall was not dramatic. It was inevitable. And one night, when his mind felt like a dim corridor, and his breath felt heavy, a pull, faint as a forgotten breath, drew him down an alley he'd never seen. He walked without aim until he found himself in front of a wooden door with a fading sign, Dojo. A place of the way. For reasons he couldn't articulate, he stepped inside. Inside the dimly lit dojo stood an old man sweeping the floor. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. A stark contrast to Kai's trembling, restless energy. The old man looked at him, not with curiosity or judgment, but with recognition. "You look heavy," he said. Kai tried to shrug it off. "I'm fine." A small smile creased the man's face. That word has broken more warriors than defeat ever has. This was Master Ishida, a retired kendo instructor known for shaping men, not fighters. Kai asked the question he came to ask, "Can you teach me how to fight again?" Ishida shook his head gently. "No, but I can teach you how to stop fighting yourself." He pointed to a scroll on the wall containing 7 calligraphic symbols. The virtues of Bushido, the ancient warrior code. Integrity, courage, compassion, respect, honesty, honor, duty. But Ishida tapped only 2. Integrity, compassion. "These," he said, "are the virtues modern warriors lose first." "I don't understand," Kai said. "You have mastered strength, but you have not mastered yourself. Integrity is truth. Compassion is gentleness," Ishida said. "And without truth and gentleness toward the self, strength becomes self-destruction." Kai didn't know what to say. For the first time, someone wasn't asking him to be stronger. They were asking him to be honest. And that terrified him. The next morning, Kai arrived expecting a sword. The work did not begin with a lesson, but an anticlimax. "Start here," Ishida said, placing a broom in Kai's hands. Training did not begin with punching bags or swords. It began with a broom. Kai blinked. "You want me to sweep?" "No," Ishida replied. "I want you to learn how to move without rushing. To act without performing. To breathe without forcing." He swept. Awkwardly, irritated, impatient. But slowly, a strange thing happened. For the first time in months, his mind wasn't racing. He wasn't planning. He wasn't remembering. He wasn't judging. He was just sweeping. Later, Ishida explained, chaos outside reflects chaos within. The broom teaches clarity. Clarity teaches strength. Then the lessons deepened. Holding stances. Moving with intention. Not to fight an opponent, but to meet himself. Kai had spent years weaponizing discipline against himself. Every routine he forced was a battle. Every moment of rest was guilt. Every success was quickly forgotten, replaced by new expectations. He wasn't living. He was negotiating with his own mind. Ishida said something that rearranged him internally. "You do not lack strength. You lack gentleness." A warrior must know when to strike, and when to stop. Gentleness, Kai understood, was not weakness. It was the absence of fear. The dream returned, but the battle had changed. Kai stood in the ring, facing a perfect silhouette of his former self, the unbroken champion. It struck with the force of every victory that had ever made him arrogant, every failure he had buried. The blows landed not on his body, but on the fragile architecture of his ego. He was being shattered from the inside. As he crumbled, Ishida's voice cut through the noise. "Do not fight your shadow. Invite it." Kai dropped his hands. He stopped bracing for impact. The Phantom's final punch halted. The hard lines of the champion dissolved, revealing the truth beneath. It was just him. The man he had been running from all along. Not a rival, but a reflection. He woke with a slow, steady breath, the dawn light soft in his room. The epiphany was quiet and absolute. The shadow was not his enemy. It was every disowned part of himself, the fear behind his arrogance, the pain beneath his ambition. This was the heart of Bushido. Strength is not the suppression of weakness. It is the integration of the self. That newfound clarity was tested the very next day, not in a dream, but in the harsh light of the dojo's courtyard. Ishida led him to a seasoned bamboo pole, rooted firmly in the ground. "Break it," the master instructed. Kai's first punch was pure frustration. Pain flared in his knuckles. He struck again, his old force meeting immovable resistance. He was fighting the bamboo, and losing. "Your fist is afraid," Ishida said, placing a hand on Kai's core. "It remembers breaking. You must not strike at the target. The energy must move through you from the earth itself." Kai closed his eyes. He let the pain recede. He found his center of gravity, his breath a slow tide. He no longer saw an opponent, only a path for his energy. He exhaled. His body uncoiled. His fist was not a weapon he threw, but the final expression of a unified whole. Crack. The bamboo split, a clean break. He stood over the two pieces, his breath even, his spirit silent. The victory was not in the broken pole, but in the unbroken man who remained. True strength was not desperate. It was decisive. It was his. The echo of the bamboo faded, quickly replaced by the returning whispers of doubt. "A pole isn't a man," his mind taunted. It was in this state of fragility that Ishida found him. "There is a match at the community center next month," the master stated. "You will enter." Kai froze, the old fear coiling in his stomach like a cold snake. "I'm not ready," he confessed, the words tasting like ash. Ishida's gaze was unyielding. "Readiness is a story the ego tells to avoid risk. You are not going back to prove the man you are still exists. You are going forward to express the man you have become." The community gym smelled of stale wood, a far cry from the roaring stadiums of Kai's past. His opponent was young and hungry, his eyes burning with a desperate need to break a former champion. A month ago, that gaze would have ignited Kai's defensive fury. Now, he saw only a reflection of his own past pain. When the bell rang, Kai didn't charge. He breathed. He let the boy's fury crash against him, moving not as a wall, but as water flowing around rock. Then, he saw it, a tiny opening. It was an invitation, not a demand. He threw a single, straight right. It wasn't fueled by anger, but by the unified calm he had discovered in the courtyard. The referee stepped in immediately. There were no flashing cameras, only the sound of his steady breath. He had stepped into the fire of his fear and remained unburned. He didn't need to be the invincible champion to be whole. He was just Kai, and for the first time, that was enough. They sat on the worn wooden steps behind the community center, the evening air cool on Kai's heated skin. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a profound and unfamiliar quiet. The old Kai would have been dissecting the fight, replaying the single punch, already hungering for the next, bigger challenge. This Kai simply breathed, feeling the solidity of the step beneath him, the vastness of the twilight sky above. "You are quiet," Ishida observed, his voice blending with the chirp of the evening insects. "I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop," Kai admitted, the honesty feeling natural now. The doubt. The feeling that it was a fluke. Ishida nodded slowly. "That is the echo of the man you were." He measured his worth in a single moment, a win, a loss, a punch. "You are learning to measure it in a continuous breath." He gestured to the quiet street before them. "Strength is not the absence of that fear. It is the quiet refusal to let it choose your actions. You walk toward what scared you most. That is the only victory that ever lasts." "And compassion?" Kai asked, the virtue that had once seemed the softest now feeling like the most essential. Ishida's eyes held a deep warmth. "Compassion, Jin, is the final discipline. It is the strength to no longer turn your power against yourself, to no longer berate yourself for a loss, or obsess over a win. It is allowing yourself to be a man, not a monument." Kai let the words settle. He finally understood. Bushido was not a code for violence, but for alignment, a covenant between a man and his own spirit. It was the integrity to face the truth of who he was, and the compassion to accept that truth without war. The identity he had performed had collapsed, and in the rubble, he had found not ruin, but solid ground. He was not a fighter. He was a warrior. And the war was finally, blessedly, over. For those who are watching, next is the call to action. Now, turn the page in your life, not in this book, but in the story you tell yourself every day. The one about who you are supposed to be, what you are supposed to achieve, and the strength you are supposed to endlessly perform. That story is a cage you have outgrown. The warrior's path does not begin with a roar, but with a quiet decision. It starts the moment you choose to lay down the armor you thought was protecting you, but was only weighing you down. It begins when you stop seeing your sensitivity as a weakness, your exhaustion as a failure, and your shadow as an enemy. Your journey will not look like Kai's. There will be no dojo, no bamboo pole, no final match. Your arena is your own life, your mind, your relationships, your purpose. Your first act of true strength is simple. It requires no equipment, no plan, just a moment of courage. Take a single, conscious breath. Not a shallow one, but one that fills you completely. And in the stillness that follows, make this quiet vow to yourself. I grant myself permission to stop fighting the person I am. This is not surrender. It is the ultimate homecoming. Your new path starts with this one, unwavering step. The rest of your life begins there. This journey does not end here. True understanding is not found in words on a page, but in the choices we make when we close the book. If this story resonated with you, if it echoed a battle you recognize within yourself, then share it. Let this be a conversation that moves beyond silence. Like, share, and subscribe to continue this exploration of what it means to live with integrity, compassion, and true strength. Thank you for watching. Now, the most important part begins, your own.